Welcome to Once Upon a Nightmare. I'm your host, Amy Metcalf, and tonight I am alone. But that's okay, as I will be reading creepy Reddit stories that I found on Reddit. I hope everybody did have a great Halloween weekend. I hope it was safe, and I hope it wasn't as rainy as it was here in Montreal. I didn't do much other than spend time with my fiance. Our anniversary was actually the day before Halloween, so we just kind of did our own thing this weekend and relaxed, so it was really good for me. But anyways, let's get into these stories. I lived in New Mexico for several years before moving to the Midwest. My friend Amy and I, both females, would spend many days exploring the remote corners of New Mexico, discovering abandoned ghost towns and enjoying the quiet, desolate beauty of the desert. One afternoon in March of 2010, we were traveling from Ruidoso to Albuquerque. Always up for exploring, we took a back road rather than traveling the more direct highway. One leg of our journey had us on the NM55. It's a remote, teeny tiny 2-lane highway. We loved those types of roads up until that day. This part of New Mexico is flat and desolate desert. You can see for miles, and there is virtually nothing except dirt and rock between towns, and towns can be miles apart. So we were on NM55 going north. After a few minutes, we saw a white pickup truck ahead of us, going the same direction. Suddenly, he stopped his truck sideways in the middle of the highway, blocking both lanes. We were about a mile away from him, and as we got closer, we began to get uneasy. We could see no reason for him to do this. We were the only other vehicle out there, and we began wondering if we should turn around rather than come up to him and have to stop. We were about a half a mile away from him when he pulled over to the opposite side of the highway, but his truck was still pointed the direction we were going. We tried to relax a little. Surely this guy was a rancher or something. Maybe he was checking something on his land. As we passed him, we noticed a few things. One, there was only one person in the truck, a middle-aged guy who never took his eyes off of us. And two, he was talking into a walkie-talkie. A few seconds after we passed him, he pulled back onto the highway and started following us, but he never got too close. He would get to within a few car lengths and then drop back a little and then speed up again to within a few car lengths. We were getting nervous. We realized how alone we really were. We had seen no other traffic on that road, and we hadn't told anyone about our great idea to take this detour. We checked our cell phones, and neither one had signal. Typical for remote New Mexico, but scary given our present situation. Amy was driving and speeding up, while I frantically checked the map, hoping to find a road that would have more traffic. There was no other road. We had to travel this one to get to the next town, which was Mountain Air. Turning around to go back to the other way didn't seem like a good option. After a few minutes, we saw another pickup truck coming toward us. He was going very, very slowly, maybe 20 miles per hour, if that. This pickup was old and beat up, whereas the one behind us was newer. Amy had us up to 75 miles per hour, which wasn't typical for us on these 55 miles per hour highways, and we blew by the old pickup. As we passed it, we saw that it was another middle-aged guy, and he was talking into a walkie-talkie. After the white pickup passed him, he pulled a U-turn and pulled in behind it. As we watched all this, we could see the white pickup truck guy talking into his walkie-talkie. No doubt these two knew each other. We were being deliberately followed, and for the first and only time in my life, I felt hunted. They stayed right behind us. We watched for obstacles in the road. We truly thought old pickup guy, had set a trap in the road, and our vehicle would be disabled somehow. We talked about driving into the fields. We were in an SUV. but this was obviously their territory, and we were afraid of what would happen if we went off-road and got cornered. So we stayed on the highway. By now, pickup truck guy was right on top of us. We could see him talking to the walkie-talkie, and he stayed right on our bumper. An old beat-up pickup truck guy was right on top of him. The three of us sped down the highway. The white pickup inched closer. His maneuvering and edging closer made it apparent that he was trying to bump us. I watched helplessly as he got to within inches of our back bumper. Amy floored it. We were passing 80 miles per hour and edging up to 90 miles per hour. The road was flat and deserted, but any little thing going wrong would have been catastrophic. We absolutely were not going to slow down or stop if we could help it. The white pickup pulled into the opposite lane and started to gain speed. The only thing we could think of was that he wanted to pass us and get in front of us. If he got in front of us and his buddy was behind us, then we'd be boxed in and trapped. We looked frantically at the rocky desert on both sides of us. Our only option was to off-road it. Should we risk it? Could we speed through the desert and make it to safety in one piece? As we topped a small incline, we saw a sign that said Salinas Pueblo Missions National Monument, and it pointed towards a road on the left. And right at that moment, a blue pickup truck pulled out of that road and onto the highway in front of us. As we came up on the blue pickup truck, we saw the plates said U.S. Park Service. We looked at each other and then looked behind us. Both pickup trucks did U-turns and went the other way. We followed the blue pickup to Mountain Air and made our way to Albuquerque. I don't exactly know what those guys' intentions were, but they weren't good. There is something seriously wrong out there. I notified the state police, and they said that they would keep an eye on things. This area is very near Belen, New Mexico, which is where Tara Calico was abducted. It's also about 100 miles from Elephant, New Mexico, which is where David Parker Ray had his little secret torture laboratory. We didn't put all that together until later. Even though David Parker Ray had died by the time this happened to us, we do believe that there are others out there like him. And whoever abducted Tara has never been caught. This story is called A Girl Called Laura. When I was 10 years old, I lived in a relatively small town in Texas in a small house with my mom. My mom has always had a very caring heart for those in need. So when my uncle called her one night and told her he ran into a homeless girl at the local park, my mom offered to help her out for a day or so, just to get her back on her feet, that sort of thing. When the girl arrived at my house, she said her name was Laura. Laura told us she was 16 at the time. She seemed like a shy girl. When my mother asked what she was doing out on the streets, Laura told us that she had been kicked out of her home by her mom because her mom had accused her of sleeping with her boyfriend. Laura told us that allegation wasn't true. She told us her mother's boyfriend was the one who came on to her. My mom gave Laura a place to sleep in the guest room that night. The next day after breakfast, Laura asked to use my mom's house phone to call her mom to see if she can get some of her things from her mom's house. Laura's mom never answered the phone, and we felt bad for her. As a 10-year-old girl, I couldn't imagine what she must have been going through. Later that day, I remember watching TV in the living room and minding my own business, but I could feel someone staring at me. So I turned my head where I felt the gaze. Laura was sending me a glare so cold that if looks could kill, I would have dropped dead. I was confused and a little startled. I turned my head away from her quickly and went back to watching TV. But I could still feel Laura's cold gaze. I couldn't understand what I had done to her to cause her to look at me with such hate. The next day, it happened once more. I was in the kitchen getting a glass of water when I could feel someone looking at me. I turned my head to the side and saw Laura's head peering around the corner at me. Her eyes were dark and laced with hatred. It frightened me, and I felt so confused as to why she was looking at me like this. I didn't want to cause any trouble, so I didn't bring up Laura's death glares to my mother at all. Later that night, my uncle had joined us for dinner. He had stopped by to see how everything was with Laura, and if we had any luck finding her a place to live with one of her family members. After dinner, I was washing my plate in the sink when I heard a loud growling sound come from the dining room. I turned my head to see Laura shaking and growling like some sort of wild animal. My mom and uncle looked disturbed and worried. Laura threw herself onto the floor and began thrashing around and screaming as if she were possessed. I was absolutely terrified. It was a scary thing to witness. I grew up very religious. My mom and uncle began praying out loud for Laura while I ran to my room and closed the door. This went on for 2 hours, but it felt like an eternity of horror. I could hear Laura screaming like a mad woman and growling like some sort of deranged beast. I don't think any of us knew exactly what was going on. After my mom and uncle had prayed for Laura for what felt like forever, Laura told us she was free from an evil demon that had taken over her. None of us were sure what had caused her behavior. None of us were sure what had even happened. I peeked my head out of my room to see Laura smiling happily while she was curled up on the couch with a blanket. Her eyes opened and she shot a cold glare at me. I quickly closed my door in fear. I placed a chair in front of my bedroom door and went to sleep. I woke up the next morning by my mom waking me up. She told me that she was taking me out to eat at my favorite restaurant. When I asked if Laura was going, she gave me a serious expression and spoke. "Your uncle is going to take Laura back to her mom's house. He slept on the couch last night after what happened. He and I were talking when the two of you had gone to sleep, and we pieced together that Laura made the entire performance up last night. She said she is not stable and we think she's dangerous." As I heard my mother say those words, relief washed over me. I got dressed and went to the car to go to the restaurant with my mom. When we got to the car, we saw Laura and my uncle getting in his truck with her. Laura looked angry. Her expression was of a child's when you don't give them what they want. She got into my uncle's car and drove away. I'm 22 now, and I have never forgotten about this horrific incident that happened in my life years ago. After that day, I never saw Laura or heard anything else about her ever again. This story is called "I Don't Go to the Coin Laundromat Anymore." A few months ago, I, 22, was at the local coin laundromat. I went late because I had been studying around 10 p.m. The laundromat is pretty small, closer to the edge of the beach town I live in. The town is pretty well known for drifters and people experiencing homelessness. Most people are friendly, and there is a lot of drug use, but I've never really felt scared. Everything was fine until I went to move my laundry to a dryer. I was listening to music on my headphones, but not super loudly. Suddenly, I just got the feeling that someone was watching me. I can't really explain it. I just felt the presence. I turned around and there was a man standing just a few feet away from me. He was a white guy with pink hair wearing a full face mask, like a ski mask, a hoodie, gloves, and sunglasses, even though it was dark out. The gloves and sunglasses especially immediately made me feel uncomfortable. I thought maybe he was a drifter or high, but I didn't want to be rude. I tried to laugh it off and told him he surprised me. He immediately started talking. A lot of it was just disjointed and just didn't make any sense. He was talking about coming up from Brazil to bring his brother money to get a classic car. None of it made much sense, but he would ask me questions and wait for me to respond, so I tried to just play along. I still thought he was probably just high or something, but he was standing between me and the only door I started getting this gut feeling that he was blocking the door on purpose, not just accidentally as he talked to me. He was getting closer to me as he talked, and the feeling got stronger. Logically, something was off, but mostly, I just had this feeling in the pit of my stomach that I needed to leave and keep him talking until I could. I started to edge to the side, but he stayed in front of me, and the feeling got more intense. I started to grip my keys in attack position just in case. He talked more and then backed off a little. He took off his backpack, which was a child's unicorn backpack, and set it on a nearby dryer. I looked over to the door for just a second, and when I looked back, he was pulling something I couldn't see out and holding it to the side, behind him where I couldn't see it. But I did see what was in his backpack: duct tape. Instantly, it was like an alarm went off. There was no more worrying about being rude, no more second-guessing myself that he was just off but harmless. It was like this cold, numb dread just washed down over me. I almost felt calm, like I knew the next steps, knew I had to do something. Time seemed to move in slow motion, and he turned back to me, not saying anything anymore, and took a step forward. I gripped my keys as tightly as possible and tried to mentally prepare to fight. I remember being afraid that I would move too slow or be too weak, like in a nightmare. But all of a sudden, the door to the laundromat opened, and a woman walked in, barely even looked at us as she went to get her laundry. It was like a scene in a movie, a moment of intensity just interrupted by something innocuous, and suddenly it's over. He just turned, got his bag, and left. I was so scared I just stayed there a moment, until I could get my laundry and just go home. I didn't report it. I never knew what to say, since nothing had actually happened. But when I think about it, I think the scariest thing is that he left as soon as someone walked in. If he was just crazy, it wouldn't have mattered. I think a stranger's laundry timer saved me from something terrible. I don't go to the laundromat anymore. I joined a laundry service. The extra cost is worth it to never go back. So, to the man with the pink hair and the unicorn backpack, let's not meet again. And for our last story, this one's called Home Sweet Home. This has been happening over the last few months. My partner and I used to live in a studio apartment near the city when he decided it would be a great idea to get a cane corso puppy. These dogs grow big and fast. We needed to move ASAP. We took this opportunity to move away from the city and closer to the beach, craving a more chilled area. We quickly found a place in the perfect area. Two bedrooms and a yard for puppy. Great. I inspected it, and the agent was very awkward, said we could take it straight away as there were no other applicants, and pets were allowed. Rare in our area during the pandemic. And that we could have the keys within a week. We snapped it up and moved in 3 weeks later. I had sent the property to my family, and my brother laughed as he informed me that the house used to be a massage parlor. One guess how he knew. I shrugged it off anyway. I'm all about energy and spaces, so I was quick to make it homely, and Puppy had her own yard. We could walk to the beach, had a great cafe around the corner, and some of our friends lived close. Everything felt really nice, for a little bit. A week after moving in, a cute old couple from the street came over to introduce themselves. Blessed. The gentleman mentioned something about the distasteful activity that used to take place at the property, but it was just a passing comment. Apparently the massage parlor closed down 5 years ago. No worries. We settled in a little more, and my next task was the garden. One afternoon, I was walking back into the house from the car, in track pants, dirty t-shirt, hair up, barefoot with a bag of soil on my shoulder. This is important for what comes next. As I'm walking to the front door, I notice a man on a push bike, sunglasses and half his face covered in a balaclava type thing. Weird, but okay. Riding back and forth, eyeing me off. Now, due to past trauma, I have a sixth sense for creepy dudes, and this got my attention. I can hold my own. I'm 175 centimeters, and that's tall for a girl. I make it a point to stop and stare. "You all right, mate?" He stops right in front of me, pulls down his glasses, and straight up asks me for a massage. "Nah, dude. No way, can't help ya." I wasn't scared, just caught off guard, and the bag of soil was on my shoulder. Soil on my shoulder was killing me. Also, what about my outfit screams "will give sexy massage"? Anyway, I rush inside to my partner, who's conveniently taking a midday shower, and tell him what happened. Dude was long gone by the time he dried off and ran outside. We spoke about the incident for the rest of the afternoon. Perplexed, but not worried, until I did a basic online search of our address to find the ads for the massage parlor still active. I requested it be taken down, along with saying it was now a residence and not a business. We move on. Until a week later. My partner works long days, and I'm in between jobs due to the pandemic, but teach the occasional yoga class in our old area, mainly mornings and evenings, so I'm home alone during the day a lot. Anyway, a week later since the first incident, I'm coming home from teaching around midday, starving. As I walk up to the house, there's a car parked out front with a man inside. He smiles and waves at me. Weird, but whatever. I had put our, at this stage, huge dog out in the yard while I made lunch, so she wouldn't steal it. Big mistake. There's a knock at the door. Usually if puppy is inside, she will go apeshit at anyone who isn't her mom or dad. I didn't have this alert, but I'm used to deliveries as my partner is always getting samples for work sent to the house. I casually go to answer the door. It's the guy from the car outside. As I open the door, he steps inside, pushing the door open against me as he steps in. Now, like I said, I'm a tall gal, but this dude towered over me and was close enough I could see and smell his rotten teeth. Basically on top of me, I'm in shock and ask what he wants. He smiles and asks to come inside. I try to push the door closed, but dude was large and prevented this. He proceeds to ask for, you guessed it, a massage, specifically from me. Now at this stage, my very active fight or flight response kicks in, and I manage some Hulk-type strength to physically push him out, along with shutting the door, all while screaming some wild obscenities. You can imagine. I lock the door and run for my phone to call my partner, but first run to the window to try to take a picture of the car or the man. It wasn't quick enough. I call my partner, who calls my dad, who lives close, and he comes and hangs out for a few hours. At first I was fine, a bit shaken up, but due to past trauma and delayed reaction, I broke down an hour later into full-blown anxiety attack. 2 weeks passed without any unwanted visitors. My partner had a 2-night interstate work trip coming up, which means home alone. Now usually I'd love this. I absolutely love alone time to clean and dance and sing without any interruptions. I love him, but let's be honest, there's something so nice about alone time, especially when you've lived together for years. But this was different. I always feel safe with him. He's a big dude and a trained boxer for over half his life, but with the recent goings-on, I was feeling uneasy. We organized for my dad to be on call, and I let our big baby bear sleep in the bed with me while he was away. And I kept a souvenir machete I picked up on a school trip to PNG at the door. I know, but hey, self-defense. All felt well until the first night. Now Chloe, big baby bear dog, will growl at anything, but I only worry when her fur sticks up on her back. This means she's on alert. Anyway, first night alone, I'm dead asleep around 2 a.m. But she starts growling. Sometimes she does this in her sleep. So I reach down to soothe her with a gentle stroke, but I feel her fur all stuck up. And my ears are pricked by the sound of someone walking on the gravel that's only outside my bedroom window. I freeze as she keeps growling, eventually turning into a full-blown aggressive bark as she jumps off the bed and runs to the window and jumps on the ledge. The blinds are closed, so I can't see anything. Whoever was out there was scared off by Chloe's incessant barking as she returned to the bed and plonked herself on top of me in some weird show of protection. I called Dad, and he said to call back if it happened again. The second night, I decided to stay at my mom's place, Chloe too. My partner returns from his work trip, aware of the late night scare, and told me he had emailed the property agent telling them of all the creepy incidents, along with the internet ad we had found while he was away. He was mad. They said they had no idea that the massage business ever existed. Bullshit. A week or so passed without incident, but I developed daily anxiety attacks while home alone and a mad case of insomnia. Any noise would send me into a crazed, self-defensive episode, machete in hand. At this stage, it had become an issue. We decided to start asking more neighbors, and the worst was confirmed. Turns out, the massage parlor was a full-blown brothel that had been shut down by police. One neighbor told us how she had been physically assaulted by someone attending the business, and she played a big part in it getting it shut down after that. We even found out that the last tenant that had the same issue as us, resulting in her moving her and her children out of the house. What the fuck? We decided to call the police to see if anything else could be done or just get more info. They were actually really helpful. They confirmed the whole brothel thing and told us to document any more weird stuff and made reports for trespassing for the 2 previous freaks and said if we ever felt like we wanted to move out, they would help us, as it can be pretty hard and expensive to break a lease where we live. It was literally the day after this, the florist who owns the shop on the corner that backs onto our house asked if we were home the previous night. We formed a neighborhood watch and she was part of it. We weren't. She informed us that a man was on our property looking in all our windows and knocking at the door for about half an hour. And then that night we heard footsteps in the gravel again and a knock at the door. At this stage, we were over it. We called the real estate agent again, who still denied any knowledge of the brothel until we mentioned our contact with police, to which they quickly insisted they pay for new security doors and lighting if we were to stop all contact with police. We agreed, but had no intention of not calling the police again. Turns out they knew all along, and it's law in our country to let new tenants know of previous crimes committed at a premise, which they didn't, shady AF, and explains why the house was so cheap and readily available. We have been in a COVID lockdown now for 2 months on and off, which may have deterred any creeps from coming back. But I still get knocks at the door during the day, which I ignore, and my camera roll is jam-packed of every and any car license plate that is parked out the front. We have some wonderful neighbors who constantly check in on us, and the little old man down the road even made us a sign for our front door. Bless him. Safe to say, we won't be renewing our lease once the year is up. So creepy men who want a massage, let's never meet again. So, wow. A lot of these were definitely against women. And that is so scary. Like, it is so scary being a woman out in this world, whether, and especially if you are of color. I am so sorry that, like, even me parking when it's dark out in Montreal and just walking a minute to my building is so scary sometimes, or even taking the dogs out at night. It is very scary when people are walking around because you don't know who is who and what they do and what they're thinking, and it is definitely very, very scary. And even more so with all the online dating and Ubering, and we literally call strangers to our door for dates and to bring us food and to take us to random places, and it's definitely a time to always be on the alert. And always, ladies, if you feel uncomfortable, make sure you have a few friends just in case, and always let them know where you are, especially if you are alone. Always have somebody that you can call if you need to, and send them your location, because it could save your life one day. And I know I have a friend where if I'm coming home from her place or from anywhere and I'm alone, or even with my partner, I always send her a message saying that I'm home with a special emoji so that she knows it's me and that I'm safe. Because there are stories out there where even people are murdered by their partner for just out of nowhere. Not that my fiance is gonna murder me, at least not yet. I haven't bugged him that much. But yeah, I can't imagine being in these situations, and I don't remember really ever being in a situation like that except for when I was really young. I think I was in grade 7 and I was out with my friends. It was me, and this is in Mississauga, so very culturally diverse. And it was me, my friend Chelsea, and her friend Troy. We were walking home together. He was walking us home, and it was night. And as we're walking down the street, this car drives by, and a guy in the car actually yells out, "Oh, look at that, white girls," right? Or something along those lines. And Troy got so excited. He's like, "Excuse me?" And the second he opened his mouth, the car did a U-turn and came after us. We ran. And I am not the most fit person. I was a big girl at the time too. And I saw this lady, and bless her, she was walking her child, and I stopped and I was like, "Hey, can we walk with you?" And if you're also in a situation like that, this is a good thing to do. There are also stories out there where girls will do this for other girls if they think that they are in a certain situation. And even guys have done this for other girls as well, to make them feel safer when there is a guy just hounding them, right? So we stopped and we walked with this girl, and she's like, and this girl and her kid, and the car literally drove away. So we were safe, but that was the scariest moment I had experienced. I don't remember anything else, but oh my gosh, be safe out there, everybody. Don't ever do things without letting somebody know, because it could save your life. It really could. So that is all for tonight. I hope everybody has a great week. Don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Once Upon a Nightmare. You can also follow us if you would like, and follow our Instagram, our Twitter. It's all in the link tree that I will have posted in the description. And don't forget to check out our Patreon. It really would help us out if somebody could subscribe, and there would be extra content. And who doesn't like extra content? All right. I hope everybody has a great night and a great week, and I'll see you next week with a new nightmare. Bye.